Sinead.
Thanks very much, Mark. Now, it's a fact of life that pretty much every woman has to face at some point, but 7 out of 10 women in Ireland say they did not know they had actually reached menopause when it arrived. That's according to new research conducted by Vichy, which also found that almost half of women going through the change feel it has a negative impact on their self-esteem. With me to discuss this are consultant obstetrician and gynaecologist Dr. Cleona Murphy and Aisling Grimley, who founded My Second Spring. You're both very welcome this morning, ladies. Particularly happy to be talking about this because it doesn't get spoken about enough. So it's something that we need to do more of on Ireland AM. I'm going to come to you first, Aisling, because you set up My Second Spring, which is what they refer to the menopause in China, I believe, which is a lovely term, actually.
Yes.
You set it up because you found at the age of 48 you started your own menopause, and you thought, where's the information? Where's the support? You know, it does seem to be a bit of silence and taboo around the topic. Hopefully that's changing, but take us back to when you set up My Second Spring.
Okay, so I found myself at 48 and had some crazy hormones going on.
You thought you were pregnant initially?
Yes, I did, because it was kind of very similar symptoms. So, kind of breast tenderness, my period was gone for a little bit. I realised it was kind of 6 to 8 weeks and I'd had no period. I was full of raging hormones. I thought, the only thing this reminds me of is pregnancy, particularly my first pregnancy. So I kind of, in my heart of hearts, knew I wasn't pregnant, but I still had to check. So I did the pregnancy test and I was very relieved because I have 4 lovely daughters, and at 48 I was not thinking of another pregnancy. So
you probably weren't thinking of menopause either,
I wasn't,
yeah.
no. So I thought, what else could it be? I was kind of, curious or, confused initially. So then I was so relieved to think it's menopause that I was welcoming it with open arms. And then I set about asking people. And I asked friends, kind of blushing and through kind of, gritted teeth initially, do you know anything about the menopause? And everyone I came across, I asked this question, and a lot of people recoiled as if I had a contagious disease. It was quite surprising.
Even close friends?
Yeah, and they're kind of like just taken aback. And then I'd ask, what do you know about it? And the kind of things they said were my mother had a terrible time, dried up, the end, all this kind of stuff. So it was incredibly negative. Then I did some research online, and again, the websites I came across, there was a lot of negativity. Whereas I'd read a long time ago that in China they call it a second spring, and I'd always stored that idea in the back of my mind.
So a sense of rebirth as opposed to a sense of end.
Yes, and an idea that women have a stronger and more confident voice, and it's kind of a transition of life, and then they come across in a different way. So looking at the websites, there was one I came across, I thought, oh, this looks quite optimistic. There was something on fashion. So I thought, oh, this is unusual, because otherwise, women, pulling their hair out. But when I looked at the fashion, it said, wear block colours, jewellery to distract the eye, and more or less, disappear. And so I thought, God, this is not good. So anyway, my idea then for the website is that it would provide information, because there was no Irish website, which really surprised me as well, and inspiration as well. So, because it's about all aspects of life, well, the website is about all. So it's,
and the overriding message is it can be a very positive thing in your life, not this huge, big negative, it's all over, forget about everything.
Absolutely, yeah. And in fact, I think the opposite. I think if you go into it consciously, it can really be an opportunity. Because, we have the wisdom of the first half of our lives. We've figured out who we are, what we'd like to be, what way we'd like to live. And menopause actually offers us a time out, like a bit of a transition where we can have a bit of a think and realise, which bits of life we'd like to go forward on more majorly and which bits we might like to park.
You also think, Aisling, that your generation is changing the dialogue on menopause, that you're kind of empowering it now, and being empowered by it, as opposed to previous generations saw it as, very final and the end of your life as a woman in many ways.
Yeah, I think that our generation, I saw it even with pregnancy. When I was pregnant first, about 21 years ago, with my eldest daughter, there was very little to do with pregnancy. There was not much discussion. There were no lovely shops. Then by the time I had my last daughter, who's 9 now, the whole thing had changed dramatically. There were online resources. You could get designer jeans. There was, pregnancy yoga, pregnancy Pilates. There's loads and loads of stuff going on. So I think the same thing is going to happen with menopause. Not obviously quite to the same extent as pregnancy, but definitely women of my age and a little older do change the dialogue. And I think it's great that we're part of it. Yes.
To be very American, you're owning
absolutely,
it.
We're owning
Cleona, I'm going to bring you in here because the survey by Vichy was very interesting to me, and one of the things that Aisling mentioned was that women do feel more confident at that period in their life, but there was a lot of negativity as well, and one of the things that really stuck out to me was that only 2% of them felt supported by doctors and healthcare providers. So they feel like they're being let down, or there aren't enough supports or information out there for women.
I think a lot of patients are unsure who to go to. Some may have male GPs and they may be happy to go for other conditions but not necessarily for this, so they're not quite sure where to get the information. And some of the symptoms of menopause, they're aware their periods will stop, but they're not quite sure about the other symptoms, whether they're related.
What are the symptoms? I know they're varied and they are
very varied, and about 20% of people will have severe symptoms. Some will have mild symptoms, so it can be anything from hot flushes, night sweats, poor sleep, which people may not necessarily associate, sometimes aches and pains, joint pains, mood instability, and again, some people may not suffer that, and irritability. And one of the things that catches people by surprise is people who are used to being in control and working, etc., you know, finding they're a little bit more emotional, and it really catches them by surprise, because patients would say, that's not me generally. And sometimes it's a relief to be able to tell them this is
You're not going
a symptom.
mad. It's
exactly.
the menopause. Yeah.
Exactly, that can be reassuring to know.
What about treatment, Cliona? Because for a long time we were going, HRT is wonderful, and then we went, oh no, HRT, there's a cancer link. Now we seem to be going back to the idea of HRT being a successful treatment. Would you agree? Yeah,
I would agree, but HRT should be used on an individualised basis, okay, so that's the first thing. But there has been a guideline out this year, a nice guideline that one can find on the British Menopause Society website, and it's very clear that for many people, you know, without specific risk factors, HRT is a good thing, especially for the under 60s.
And we also know from a lifestyle perspective, you can really help yourself, can't you? As with all aspects of life, diet, exercise, you know, just having a healthy mental and physical approach to life will make it a lot easier for you.
Well, I think it's a time for people to regroup and assess their lives. If one is overweight, it can be a time to lose weight. If you're a smoker, smokers have a higher risk of osteoporosis, so it's important to kick that habit. And, you know, diet and exercise in general. Now, there's no evidence that exercise will help symptoms per se, but exercise does help your overall well-being. And particularly for weight-bearing exercise is very important for osteoporosis prevention. So cycling and swimming are very good for our hearts, but for osteoporosis prevention...
The weights. Yeah.
Well, just walking the dog, hill walking, it doesn't have to be, you know, 20 kilometres a day, but just moderate weight-bearing exercise, and to get that into, you know, your daily lifestyle, not just a fad once or twice a year, you know.
Aisling, just to finish, your website for people at home who are going, finally, a group of women I can reach out to and chat to, it is?
Yes, so they're the Second Springers, and it's a very engaged group of women. I have women from all over the world, as well as a lot in Ireland, but I have a lot of women telling their stories, which is very important, and because I think we understand our own stories by reading other women's stories.
So people can just log on to My Second Spring?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aisling, thank you very much. And as I was saying, we're probably going to be doing a series on menopause as well, because it's something I feel the media tends to ignore, and a whole heap of women are ignored by the same token, which shouldn't be the way it is. So thank you for trying to change it. And Cliona, thank you very much as always.
Thanks for having me.
Now, this morning we have a treat from Vichy. They are giving away a hamper full of products to one viewer. Just log onto our Facebook page for more details. Now, coming up after the break, Trish Murphy is back with us to tackle some of